You're listening to What's Contemporary Now, a show about culture and the people, places, and things that together make it up.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
The conversation around fashion commentators has gone from new to simply being an existing part of the makings of modern media. Only in its latest iteration, in place of a face and a name, we're being given these flashy green squares. Our latest guest has definitely enjoyed the freedom of remaining anonymous. Whether or not you find it charming or lackluster to hide behind the veil while slinging commentary on what everyone else is doing, it does beg the question, does the world need more unfiltered opinion, free from any politics? Or is it the accountability of speaking from one's true identity that has up until now kept the world ever so slightly more in check? Boringnotcom, of course, has an opinion.
This is Boringnotcom, and we're talking about what's contemporary now.
Boringnotcom, the one everybody wants to know who you are. And obviously, when we go into these episodes, we have a general idea, at least, of who it is we're speaking to. And that's not at all the case here. So rather than just ask about your childhood, I figured we could start with whatever it is that's led you up into this particular moment and shape the person behind Boringnotcom.
How can I tell you about myself without revealing too much? I have experienced a lot of things in the industry that it's opened my eyes a lot. And Boringnotcom is basically an extension of my actual self that people haven't seen in my daily work.
And why is it that they haven't seen this side of yourself in your daily work?
Basically, it's because I have to be more reserved in the stuff that I do and less outspoken in what I do. Boring is a way of me being able to get all of that out and get my thoughts out without constantly suppressing how I feel about certain things. I can be free when I'm on Boring. In my daily life, like between me and my friends, I like to feel like that, but when I'm in my kind of like work mode, it is totally different. And it's quite interesting compared to like how I am at work, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and does anyone in your life know that you're the person behind the account?
Yeah, one or two. My friend figured it out straight away because I added them and we were having the conversation about me doing something like this. And literally, like, within days I did it. And it was all out of boredom.
One of the things that obviously we've all heard in spades over recent years is the importance of something like authenticity, right? Which when you introduce an element of being anonymous, of course, it's easy to be authentic because there's zero accountability. But had you been considering starting the account for a while, or what was the general catalyst?
Not really. Like when it comes to social media accounts, I watched a lot of YouTube when I was younger and I used to think, oh, could I be a YouTuber? Like, how would that be? Would it be fun? And I've dabbled in an idea of it, but I never actually did it because I didn't really want to be in front of the camera. So that was an issue because obviously YouTubers usually have to be in front of the camera. Apart from Understitch, who I listen to a lot, she does like a lot of fashion documentaries and stuff, and it's just her voice. It's very anonymous, and I love that about that account. But I thought about doing YouTube, but never an Instagram account until recently. I kept on seeing this blue square pop up all the time, and I was like thinking, why are people sharing this? It was like seeing kind of press releases over and over again, and it's not giving me anything else but. So I thought, wait, I could do something better than this. And when I thought of the page being boring, I thought, okay, let me use that name and just open up a page and have some fun with it. This was literally in the middle of the night. I started it. My first post, I think, was Dior, where I gave it a 3 out of 10 for the latest collection. I think it was the Spring/Summer 25 collection. And from then, people just started adding, and I just kept on posting more and more and started getting more confident in posting, and it was fun.
Why do you think faceless content creators are on the rise? What kind of got us suddenly interested in this anonymous content creator style as a format?
Do you think it's on a rise?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all over the internet. Anything from YouTube, like you said, where people can use AI to generate what it is they want to say with the content, to Instagram accounts or whatever. There's so much to automate that I think a lot of people similar to yourself who didn't want to show their face have found a new way to sort of take up those digital opportunities without ever having to say who they are.
I feel like there's always going to be those people who are going to want to be anonymous because not everyone wants to be in front of the camera. But I've always been kind of more on the shy side. I'll go to the odd fashion event and I've been to the shows and I've done all of that. But for me, it's been a total different way of how I like to approach things. But I think it's on a rise probably because you can be an alter ego of yourself and you can be more honest in times where I feel like people's voices get suppressed a lot, especially in the working environment, especially in fashion, where it relies on a lot of advertising and advertisers. They've kind of destroyed a lot of things by controlling the media so much, to the point that the creative side is now being neglected because you can't really do anything. Like, stylists can't really style anymore. They have to do total looks. Writers can't really say what they actually thought about the collection. Like, they have to, beat around the bush about a really bad collection instead of saying it wasn't good. I mean, there's ways of saying something is not good without actually saying it, but they can't even do that nowadays. They just have to kind of go around in circles without saying what they actually think and give an honest opinion about anything.
And do you feel like that's true of the fashion critics that we all know and love today at the kind of legacy media brands?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of fashion critics now, they're not enjoying it anymore. They probably wanted to be a journalist because they could speak about what they really feel and think. But I think now they've noticed the business side is sucking everything dry, basically, especially if you work for a magazine.
What is it that has given you the sense of authority over the subject matter that you speak to? Because obviously the unregulated nature of the internet has fans and it also has critics itself. But based on everything you're saying as to the reason why we need more freedom, be it in styling or journalism, what is it that made you feel confident enough to have an opinion that you thought mattered in the larger conversation?
Well, like I said, I started boring to just speak about my thoughts and my opinions. And I understand that even if I was qualified or not qualified, people will always disagree with me. And I'm okay with that. The people that follow me, I like it when they challenge me as well and they disagree with certain things that I might say or not say. So I'm open.
And in terms of the name, you could have called it anything, but why choose an existing name? Was that just like a marketing strategy to get attention quickly, or what was that choice?
It was literally because of seeing that page and constantly seeing it pop up, and I thought it was kind of reductive and boring. And when I said that to myself in my head, I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to call it. I'll call it Boringnotcom. I'll do that concept and just make it better. Actually speak my mind, speak my truth, and just have fun with it. Literally, I'll think about something in minutes and it will be up. Like I never really overthink about what I'm going to write. It's usually coming out of passion, or something I really believe in, or something I feel like should be spoken about. Like today, for example, I saw a Kate Moss image by Balenciaga, and I was kind of shocked by the image because it didn't look anything like her. And post said, when are photographers gonna stop retouching her to the point that she looks like a 16-year-old? Because she doesn't look like that anymore.
Well, in the age where avatars are being created of some of the world's biggest stars, and obviously something we'll see used with more frequency in the not so far off future, that kind of timeless nature of their features is inevitably going to be seen in a lot of the images we're looking at, be it for advertising or whatever it is. And so I kind of think that at a certain point, we're going to have to reframe our relationship to whether or not that's justifiable or if it's manipulation, because I think once it's above board and we know what it is we're getting and that it is, an avatar of a particular person, then suddenly the critique around something being too processed in post-production will probably fade away because the context is different, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if they're going to do all of that, they need to be kind of honest, and there's going to have to be some kind of label. Instagram needs to really home in on like, okay, if you're going to totally change an image and manipulate it, like we need to see some kind of badge or something on this ad or in the description somehow. They really need to enforce it because kids are looking at this and they're thinking that this is real.
And something like being anonymous, obviously we've spoken about it through the lens of your experience and being on your side of this equation, but there is a benefit to the audience as well, because it's kind of almost like reading a book where imagination is shaping the story versus watching a film, which kind of defines the characters and stories for you. Do you think you'll always keep this project anonymous?
Personally, I love being anonymous. I've never really wanted to be front and center. I've never wanted to be famous. Rich, maybe, but not famous. I've never really craved that. Even since I was a kid, I wanted to be known as an artist. Not really, like someone who's like in front of the camera or anything like that. But I'm sure someone's going to try and ruin this anonymity for me. And I'm going to have to maybe one day reveal who I am, because it's not easy being anonymous. Like, you have to go through all of this stuff. Even doing this interview, the process that I have to do, just to make sure that, I'm protected in some kind of way. But nothing is guaranteed.
I'm getting the impression that you've faced adversity in life. And I know that when you did that piece with The Cut, there were mentions of kind of categorical marginalization in terms of opportunities that people are or are not given based on how they present. And, you're talking about imagery's positive or negative impact on the audience as far as the example you gave with Kate Moss. But what do you want to say about those other things that you touched upon in that Cut article that I just mentioned?
I mean, a lot of things are not just my personal experience, it's also experiences of people close to me as well. I have friendship groups from different backgrounds, and they're in fashion or not in fashion. And we speak about these world issues all the time, and I like to bring them up on Boring sometimes and talk about these topics after. Sometimes I have like a really, heated conversation with a friend, and it can kind of inspire a post, and then it would just spiral into like, something that I write for Boring.
Why do you think it's drawn so many industry members to your content in such a short period of time?
It's very spontaneous and it's not planned at all. And I feel like maybe they love being on that roller coaster that I'm going on and want to see where this is going to go. I honestly don't even know. Like, brands are interested in me, but they're not at the same time because they're scared. And I'm like, look, there's nothing to be scared of. I am just going to say if I don't like something, and if I like it, I like it. But I had to make it clear to them that they are not going to control me. Of course, we all love to be paid for the work we do. And if I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to Boring, eventually I'm going to want to be compensated for the work I do. And be very mindful about the brands I work with. And there are brands that I actually like. I don't hate everything. So people need to realize that I'm not someone that hates everything. I talk about things that I love. People just seem to focus on what I don't like.
Well, do you remember who some of those early followers were to the account that kind of spurred all of that other attention? I feel like I started following you after seeing a repost from Katie Grand.
Yeah. I think it was Katie. Who else?
I feel like Ezra was an early follower.
Ezra was very early as well. It was a lot of PRs as well. Following me very early on from like KCD, PR consultant, Carla Otto, Lucian Pages followed, and then unfollowed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back, but if he doesn't, oh well. I'm not someone who's seeking out for someone to follow me. I only want people to follow me if they love what I do and want to hear my opinion. I'm not going to be there just to say your brand is great.
Well, you are talking about the project through the lens of it becoming a business, and you've recently launched Boring FM, a channel focused on your musical taste. So is that a sort of indicator that we can expect to see brand extensions and a kind of development of what it is that started with just an Instagram page?
They will definitely grow if I plan on continuing with it. Because I'm still very 50-50 about this right now. if I still want to continue with it or not. So right now I'm just seeing it as a fun project. And fashion is clearly the big part of it and is where I'm most knowledgeable. There's going to be some new divisions in the new year if I do plan on continuing it. And it's going to be more than just a green screen, let's just say.
Well, what sort of thing might lead to you deciding not to continue it? What kind of con list exists already in your mind?
I'm at that stage of my life that I don't want to do anything that it's not fun and I'm not enjoying. I've done a lot of, things just to please people, feeling like I have to do something. And I started boring because I wanted a space to escape and enjoy, and I'm enjoying it right now. I feel like if it gets to a point where it starts to make me feel not in the right headspace or anything like that, then it will be time to let it go because it's not worth my mental health or anything like that. It can get very dark on the internet. So I'm trying to be a bit lighthearted about everything that I post. Even when I talk about something, I try to make sure it's not too much of like an attack on someone because, I understand that my words can be hurtful at times. So I do try and make sure that if I am talking about a brand, I'm talking about the brand, not really the person.
I think we can all agree that heritage brands have made a bit of a shift towards lesser known creatives and editors, moving away from star power, which is kind of what governed the industry for so long. But what do you think the industry is getting right, and what do you think it's getting wrong with that kind of a shift?
With the heritage brands, I feel like they started taking the creativity out of the designer's hands and it became more of like a boardroom thing. Or how many accessories, bags can we sell? And the creativity of the designer kind of started going away, and the quality as well. And the consumer can see this, and they know this now because of the internet. There's even like a YouTuber who takes bags apart and shows how bad the quality is. Like, you can see everything now. So I feel like the consumer is becoming more aware and also fatigued because so much has been pushed on us constantly, and it's not even good things being pushed on us. And the consumer is dying to be creative again. That's why, like, when you see the Galliano show for Margiela, we miss that side of fashion. That makes us feel excited and wanting to actually buy the product.
Another conversation that kind of comes up on and off and never seems to find its own ending is, what does fashion as an industry look like in a post-Anna Wintour era?
Well, I feel like Anna has done a wonderful job, but fashion has just changed so much that she cannot be the figurehead anymore. I feel like it's very hard for there to be a figurehead now in fashion. All these different magazines and blogs and Vogue is not the center of the universe when it comes to fashion anymore. So I'm definitely excited for things to be shaken up. It already is. Like, we're living in every single day. Things are changing, and magazines, like, I feel like they get like overshadowed by different content creators and websites. It's just so different. But people are moving on. Something needs to change. Something needs to refresh the magazine because it's feeling very dated.
I think a lot of people have, of course, criticized the current state of Vogue and whether or not it still feels modern and has its thumb on the pulse, or the painful blind spot of not having hit the Charlie XCX cover opportunity at the end of this particular summer. But I also don't know if I entirely agree with this notion that print has found itself in a mortuary, because we're seeing more titles actually become a luxury item in a way that so many people had kind of talked about. In 2009, 10, 11, there was this whole discourse around what digital represented for print and how at that point they were two separate things. But over time, a lot of people imagined that print would have to become a luxury item in order to justify its existence. And I think we've sort of seen that with a brand like ID now moving into a biannual publication schedule. We see a greater level of production quality being invested in what these books look like, cases and different formats, so that they're being treated more as a time capsule than anything.
I feel like one of the first magazines that kind of did that was Self-Service.
Mm-hmm.
Self-Service always looked luxurious from the editorial, the way they present things. It always looked like a book, not a magazine. So I never thought of Self-Service as a magazine, because if I had it, I wouldn't throw it away. Magazines, I'll throw away. because they just don't feel luxurious to me. Perfect also launched like a book form. It was literally a book, like a really big A1 or something. It was like a big, big book. And I think Katie has now shrunken it into a smaller size. How they did it is how I feel like Vogue is going to end up being. Like Vogue is going to end up becoming a hardback book that is available like quarterly or something. And that's how I feel like it's going to move forward, because there's so many different Vogues now and no one really looks to Vogue for advice.
What do you think they do look to?
Influencers.
Mm-hmm.
Influencers do a lot of talking. It's very quick. Celebrities, Kim Kardashian. I feel like the brands have run out of ideas, but I'm like, okay, there's new people out there that are exciting that you can possibly try and get. I'm tired of just sticking the Kardashians on anything at any time. I love the Kardashians, but it just becomes very reductive. Give me something new. Give me something fresh. Think out of the box. Like, you know, the Whoopi Goldberg.
I was just going to say, what do you think about the trend we've seen over the past year where much more mature talent are being featured on independent covers, advertising campaigns?
Oh, I love.
Ageism has gone out the window.
I love it. But I want it to be genuine, and I don't want it to be a trend. I don't want it to be the whole, we're going to do diversity and size inclusion, and then after 2020, it had all gone out the window. I've seen friends, like close friends of mine, being picked up and literally thrown away after. And now they're not working anymore, they're totally suffering, and they saw the big hike and the downfall from that moment. And it's sad to see. Even people using plus-size models, people who suffer from disabilities, that was the thing. Do you remember, like, 2 years ago?
The Victoria's Secret show.
Now, like, where do you see that? You don't. It's like size inclusion is, like, non-existent again.
It's also a little bit confusing to see so many of its champions shrinking at rapid rates and becoming an entirely different size themselves. I mean, it's kind of giving Sophie Dahl or Crystal Wren, who went through similar trajectories. So it's really interesting to see the relationship that both the talent and the industry as a whole have with something like that.
I mean, people change, and it's their right to change, and I don't mind that happening, but there will always be someone else that you can get. People find excuses to not use plus-size models. And it all starts from the brands not even making the clothes to fit.
Of course, it's a oddly logical issue that has inexplicable reasons for not yet being executed. But for the sake of levity, we wanted to find out, in the case we hosted the unofficial Boringnotcom Industry Awards, who would you choose as icons in the categories of designer, magazine editor, stylist, photographer, and model?
Icons would be John Galliano. Magazine-wise, I would say self-service.
Well, what about editors? Because we're talking about people, right? So we've hit designer, you've mentioned magazines, but what about magazine editors today that you would actually give that icon award to?
Do you mean stylists? Can it be stylists?
No, a stylist is a separate category. Magazine editors is something that I'm very curious to get your take on, just because I think A, you have a lot of opinions, B, we've just discussed the role magazines have, and also touched upon someone like Anna Wintour. And as we see a shift away from these kind of celebrity star roles in positions such as editor, I wanted to hear who you found to be quite directional in that category.
I'll say no one for now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not really like thinking, oh my gosh, amazing. With anyone right now. So that's what it's going to be. I have to stay true. When it comes to stylists, I would say Panos, who you don't really see anymore. Jacob K is really talented as well. I love how he builds worlds in his editorials. Photographers, I would say Luis Alberto Rodriguez. Model-wise, I would say Giselle and Alex Consani.
We love Alex.
She's major. She's doing really good things for trans girls. I really like her.
And while we're on the subject of the things you love, and obviously we talked about it earlier, but do you have a favorite fashion critic of your own?
Of course I do.
Okay, so
Style.com, because he's boring.
You like him because he's boring.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate? I'm a little slow to pick that one up.
That's it. That's what I'm saying to that.
So interesting. I feel like we just got given a clue. One of the things that's a continuation in the vein of criticism, of course, is the way we've seen different platforms emerge dissecting business of fashion, no pun intended. Do you think that the world benefits from that kind of dissection of an industry that was once only about conveying meaning through symbols and self-expression?
So you're basically asking about how the industry has become a monster kind of thing?
Well, no. Do you think it's a good or bad thing that we've now made a habit of dissecting a world that was otherwise a source of ways to express oneself? And now it's just become a complete analysis and doomsday prophecy around the end of luxury as a sector.
Oh yeah, that whole end of luxury thing we've seen in the past month is ridiculous. It's not the end of luxury. Luxury just has this kind of cycle that it goes through all the time and trends that it goes through all the time. I just feel like we now have luxury in a different way. You have to search for luxury because it's very hard to find now. I feel like a lot of brands are doing the same thing. So, I don't think it's for the better. I think until they realize that they can't just keep wanting more and more and more growth, they're going to suffer.
That's absolutely fair, and a statement that I personally would not argue with. And that leads us to our last and final question, which apparently you already gave an answer to, but I'm sure you can come up with something else. What is contemporary now?
What's contemporary now is people who give people in marginalized spaces opportunities, especially women in big leadership positions in fashion. I feel like it's a topic that we don't talk about much. Diversity, fair wages, sustainability. All of those things I feel like are contemporary now, and we need to really focus on these topics and bring them to the forefront of, the industry. Not just in fashion, but worldwide.
Beautifully said. Thank you. I guess thank you, person.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of What's Contemporary Now. A special thanks to our producer, Sasha Grinblatt, audio post-production by Chase Coughlin with original theme music by Joseph Topmiller of The Black Soft, and visual design by Aaron Meager and Graham Prentice. Subscribe now to be the first to catch new episodes each week, and if you've enjoyed listening, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a review and let us know your thoughts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for additional content and join the conversation. Let us know what you think is contemporary now.